Ladies and gentlemen, it's the James Well Radio Show. Now, you might wonder why I introduced the programme in that sort of DJ-ish voice. Well, the reason is later, one of the legends of radio, the royal ruler, Mr. Tony Prince, is going to be talking to us on the programme, and we will have a little chat with Tony. And if you are as old as me, you may remember him on the pirate radio stations, or I actually remember him more from Radio Luxembourg, the Great 208. So if you're a radio fan, that's coming up a little later on the programme. Now, Rob is here, who's put together the programme this week.
Hello, I'm here, yes.
Yes, you're here. I want to say hello to those of you new listeners to the programme. Nice to have you there, wherever you may be in the wide world. Hi to the people listening to us via talentgb.com, audio boomers, and all those people all over the place. We should say, of course, if you're a new listener, there is, over 70 hours on our website, jameswellradio.co.uk.
Well, this is show 86, so it's more like 86 hours.
Oh, well, in that case, there's over 80 hours. 80 hours of me talking rubbish. My gosh. Oh, dear. Hey, listen, story in the news just now coming in, of course. Prince Charles has been writing letters to the government. Shock horror. Well, if I was the Prince of Wales in line to the throne, I'd be writing letters to the government. What's so strange about that, wouldn't you?
Well, I would have thought he'd send an email, wouldn't he?
Well, yes, but he's of that age, isn't he, where he likes to write handwritten letters, apparently. I'm not really sure why The Guardian is so obsessed by whether or not the politicians take any notice of him. I wouldn't have thought that the politicians would have taken any more notice of him than they take of me, and they don't take much notice of me.
Did he use a wax seal?
I've no idea, but I hope he did. I rather hope he did. Hey, listen, we haven't really spoken since the election, have we?
No, we haven't.
Well, we have, but not on the air. Well, there's a turn-up for the books.
I told you Nicola Sturgeon would win.
Yes, and you were right. She did. She did. And UKIP won one MP.
Yeah, I was wrong about that.
Nigel Farage is not a happy man.
He's lost his job now, hasn't he?
Well, no, he's still an MEP. He's still on 160 grand a year plus X's or whatever it is. He's still leader of UKIP as well, and that's upsetting all sorts of people.
How's he still leader of UKIP? Thought he was resigning.
No, he resigned, but they wouldn't let him, so he's staying on because they love him. And why not? Mind you, I wouldn't want to be Nick Clegg. I wouldn't want to be Ed. Oh God, what is his name? So soon you forget. Ed's not a good name to have in politics. You make a balls up of stuff, don't you? Really?
Dead Ed.
Dead Ed, Dead Miliband, and balls.
Can you say balls on the radio?
Well, it's his name. It would be very difficult not to, wouldn't it?
Okay, you can mention balls if it's in the name, then. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, if you're called Balls, you can mention Balls. There's no problem with that. His name is Ed Balls. Now he's not a politician anymore. I wonder what he'll do. Well, his wife is standing for the leadership of the Labour Party, so that in itself will be rather entertaining.
Mrs. Balls?
Mrs. Balls is standing to be Yvette Cooper is her name in her own right, of course, standing to be the leader of the Labour Party against various other people. And now they're having a huge discussion on who's going to lead the Lib Dems. Well, to be quite frank, and I don't wish to be party political about this, but is there really any point in the Liberal Democrats anymore? The fact is there are only 8 of them.
Do you need a leader and 8 people? I suppose you do, don't you? Team leader.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all a bit pointless. My actual suggestion is that Labour, UKIP, and the Lib Dems get together and form a new party.
What would that be? Labour,
Lib Labkip, Lib Labkip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, something like that. Yeah, something rather entertaining. Anyway, listen, also, thank you, everybody. Very sweet. I was trying to keep my birthday a bit of a secret because when you seem to have been around for a long time, it's probably not a good idea to go on about how much older you're getting. But I don't know, there were hundreds and hundreds of people who got in touch. Thank you very much indeed. If you'd all only sent a £5, I could probably have retired by now.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, well, we can always look forward to that. And can you stop finding pictures of me when I'm about 22 and 20 and putting them up? Is that you that's doing that, Rob? Are you getting hold of these pictures and putting them up?
Well, you did send me a massive box of your old archive, so it's your own fault, really.
Well, no, you said you'd put it somewhere safe. I didn't expect you to actually start releasing old clips. I mean, the pictures are bad enough, but when you get round to the film clips of you sort of speaking in your 20s and 30s, it's like looking at old home movies.
It's safe on the internet.
Luckily, there aren't any of me making sandcastles on the beach with no clothes on.
There is. Can I put that one out?
You better not. There better not be. There really better not be. Anyway, thank you to everybody that mentioned my birthday. Thank you very much indeed. If you've got a birthday soon, I would like to wish you all a very happy birthday and a safe, secure future as well. That's rather nice, isn't it?
That was too nice.
Do you know, outside my window here, I sit in my my office at home to do this programme, and outside my window, in a bush just outside the window, a blackbird has made her nest, and I can actually see, she's just got off the nest now. There are 3 eggs in the nest, and if there are no lights on in this room, I can stand by the window and I could just watch. I should try filming it. Maybe I should put a little periscope video out of her sitting on the nest. Although that might disturb her, so I won't.
So we're doing bird watch now, are we?
We could do, couldn't we? Do you know, while I'm in the animal mood, let's talk about Johnny Depp and this latest story from Australia. And quite frankly, I think the minister of whatever it is in Australia should be ashamed of himself. Because Johnny Depp should be ashamed too. Johnny Depp has taken his little 2 Yorkshire Terriers to Australia, where he's making the latest in the series of movies about him as a pirate. Pirates of the Caribbean, filmed in Australia. And he's taken his dogs, which isn't allowed, and they've told him that either he sends the dogs or takes the dogs out of Australia, or Australia will kill his dogs. He shouldn't have brought them in, and he should take them back, I presume. But to be quite honest, put them in. Don't threaten to kill them. Just bullying, isn't it? I might just have a look and see if there are any babies hatched out. Hold on.
Okay, I'll wait.
No, interesting. The male blackbird is feeding the female blackbird at the moment because she's sitting on the nest. I mean, I'm literally looking through the window. I'm literally about 6 inches away from the nest. So this is remarkable. I wish you could see. I wish you had colour and could see this now.
I think we need a bit more than colour.
Do we?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what a shame you haven't got visuals. But never mind. So anyway, I just think I think it was not the Prime Minister, might have been the farming minister of Australia or whatever. He said, and I don't care if he's a movie star, just tell him and his dogs to bugger off, which is not very political-like, is it? It's not really the sort of behaviour and language you would expect from politicians.
We have to go to your friend Tony.
Do we? Good. Now, yeah, because Tony's actually about to tee off.
James Well radio show.
Now, here's one of the legends that I used to listen to under the covers when I was quite young. Now, I enjoy saying that because normally people say that to me, but in this instance, here is a man who I first met as a support disc jockey in a store in the Strand in around about 1968. I didn't say much to him because, I was a little bit starstruck. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tony Prince, the Royal Ruler.
You say the sweetest things, James. How are you?
I'm very good, my friend. Do you remember that store appearance you made all those years ago?
I do indeed. Were you DJing in the store?
I was the disc jockey for Top Shop.
Yeah, what a great experience that was. A lot of people did store gigs in those days when you get on radio. But your career is fantastic. Talk about me being a legend. I'm one of your biggest fans, mate.
Well, listen, we must stop this or people are going to just talk. Let me take you back to that time on Radio Luxembourg when the signal was fading in and out. How did you first get the job there?
Well, before Luxembourg, I was on Radio Caroline, the pirate ship, with Tony Blackburn and the Emperor Roscoe and all that crowd. And when the government made it illegal, we came ashore. Some went to Radio 1, and I went to Radio Luxembourg. I intended one day to go to Radio 1, but it never happened. I stayed with Luxy for 16 years, and the last 7 I was program director.
16 years? My
16
gosh.
16 years, yeah. And when people say, you know, I used to listen to you on Luxembourg, I said, well, it was worth a 16 years stretch then if you used to listen, you know. But, you know, of course, James, as you know, there wasn't very much radio around, and the radio that was around didn't have much needle time because the Musicians Union, who actually expelled me when I was a kid in 1964 because I was playing records in a ballroom. So Luxembourg was the diet for pop music-starved kids, not just in the United Kingdom, but all over Europe, I think at our height. You know, across Europe, we were purported to have 100 million listeners a night.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think of the sort of listenership now, isn't it? And back in the time of Radio Caroline as well, that wasn't an easy gig to do, was it? Because you were harassed continually.
Well, I don't think we were, you know. We were oblivious to any harassment. I think it was the management of Caroline and Radio London who had all the government harassment and lobbying Parliament and so on. We just sat out on the ship playing music. That's all we wanted to do. We didn't want a part of the politics, and we hoped beyond hope that one day the government would recognize the popularity of the ships and keep them going, you know, but that never came to pass. But we did 2 weeks on the ship and 1 week off. And, of course, on the 1 week off, we'd all head to London and we'd party in the, 1966. It was an incredible time to be in London. Carnaby Street was going. And I used to share a hotel room with Roscoe, and we had the most fabulous time. But at the end of that week's leave, we were exhausted and couldn't wait to get back to the ship.
I used to listen to Johnny Walker in particular. I used to listen to, I listened to you. I used to listen to Tony Windsor. Do you remember Tony Windsor?
I do indeed. TW, he was a real character. He was Australian, and you know what? He used to be called Tony Withers, and he worked on an Australian radio station, and he conned his listeners into believing he had cancer, and they all clubbed together. All the listeners put some fun together to let him see Europe before he died. Of course, he didn't die. He just carried on sailing with Radio London. He was fantastic. And, of course, you had Kenny and Cash. Kenny Everett and Dave Cash had a fantastic program. You had John Peel with his perfume garden, and yeah, it was just a fantastic time for DJs to develop. And we were all taught really by the Canadians and the Australians and Americans who came to work on the ships.
Now, from my own point of view, I moved into doing mostly talk radio. Talk radio as a genre has never really taken off in this country, has it, compared with others?
Well, I'm not too sure. What was that old station of yours called?
Oh, well, there was Talk Radio, Talk Sport and LBC.
LBC. I used to listen to that all the time until you left. I don't listen much anymore. I don't know. I mean, it's not just talk radio that's got a problem. I think radio generally has got a problem. I was in California a few months ago, and my friend brought his 15-year-old daughter for a birthday celebration. I said to her, what radio station do you listen to? They'd been in Dubai before, now they were living in California. She said, I don't listen to radio. And I think that's pretty well what teenagers around the world would answer, because they're not listening to radio like we used to. They have other sources for their music, and they interplay with the internet and share data with their friends. It's a new age. It's all internet. And I think radio, as you and I knew it, is really threatened.
Do you think it's finished, or do you think radio has to realize that it's moving on to a new stage?
I think it's got too much competition to be as vast as it is now. There's a lot of radio stations around. And, you know, back in the 60s, be careful what you pray for, because I think, you know, we were out on those ships to force the government and the BBC to understand that the kids, the teenagers, not just the teenagers, society in Great Britain wanted more music 24 hours a day. And, you know, it's just blown up and exploded. But now I think it's regressing. I think the internet is taking over. I mean, you talk about local radio, James. There's no such thing now. You can listen to a radio station from Manchester in Australia, and you can listen to a radio station in Sydney in Slough. You know, there's no local radio anymore. I think the problem, of course, is, you know, funding it and getting the advertising for those international concepts. That's more difficult. Radio Luxembourg always had that problem. They had a rate card for selling advertising for the UK, but they had a massive audience all over Europe, but they couldn't sell that because the advertising agencies worked to sell their products in the United Kingdom. And I think internet radio's got the same problem now. I mean, brands like Coca-Cola and so on can have expansive budgets covering them all. But smaller companies who are concentrating on the United Kingdom, I think they'll find it very difficult to get the penetration they need and value for money in advertising. That's radio's big problem.
Well, as you know, this radio program I do from my home, it goes out online, it gets taken by various numbers of radio stations, and we have listeners all over the world. You're absolutely right.
I know.
And the other thing is that now...
I've seen the data on your website. It's very, very impressive. And may I say hi to all the old Radio Luxembourg and Caroline fans if they're still alive. Hi, wherever you are.
Tell me about you. You've actually been doing all sorts of things since people maybe last heard. You used to run wedding TV. I thought that was quite fun. And now you're running a TV company and you're doing a series on the old radio stations.
Yeah, well, the company I'm doing the TV channel on now is dmcworld.com, which is 32 years old now. It's run by my wife and my family, and it's the World DJ Championships at the central point of this, and we put that event on every year in countries all over the world and bring them to London. We have this massive championship. So that website's developed, and because of my experience owning and being program director on wedding TV, which no longer exists, sadly, it failed because of advertising problems, we've taken my experience in making programs, and I'm now making documentaries on DMC World TV, a TV channel on our website. And it's concentrated solely on DJs. And I decided about a year and a half ago, we had to address the problem of the Boat That Rock movie. It was a bit of a comedy, and it didn't really portray the true life of pirate radio. So I started a series. It's up to series 6 now, which is actually the Radio Caroline story. But it began in series 1 with DMC Story, my company, a company that kind of inspired DJs all over the world to get into remixing and mega mixing. We were the first people to do that. And so our whole focus is on DJs and the welfare of the DJ industry.
Is the DJ an endangered species?
No, you know, they're making fortunes now. You look at people like David Guetta and Carl Cox, they work in Ibiza every summer season, and they go out for anything between £100,000 and £200,000 a night. So that kind of DJ, I mean, the big names are established. It's very more difficult now to become one of those big-name DJs. But it's a global market now. DJs work all over the world, and it's very, very exciting. But if you talk about radio DJs, I think the problem that they've experienced is that radio generally has been fine-tuning and tightening up their music formats to a top 30 format, and it gets very monotonous. And the DJs have been under instruction to keep it tight, and cut down on the personality stuff. You know, Kenny Everett would never have made it in this day and age. I think the future for DJs on radio is to bring back personality. Why else would you listen to a radio station just for music? And I think that the saving grace for the DJs on radio in the future are much more personality, of which you, James, have got bags.
Well, listen, that's very kind of you to say so. All the DJs on the pirate radio stations and then on the early days of Radio 1 had to have a personality. Now, they had to have a personality to get people to listen to them. And then it went on into the sort of 80s, 90s, and now, where, as you quite rightly say, program directors don't want the people on the radio to talk. They just want them to get on and play more music.
This is absolutely right. You know, when I was program director of Radio Luxembourg, I employed Steve Wright, Mike Reed. I gave them their first national radio experience, and I actually turned down Pete Tong. I actually said to him, Peter, you have a lovely voice, you know all about dance music, but you don't have the personality we are looking for on Radio Luxembourg. You've got to be a bit daft. Noel Edmonds started on Radio Luxembourg, you know. Noel was one of the first members of a live team after the Pirates. It was myself, Kit Jensen, Paul Burnett, and Noel Edmonds. He started on Radio Luxembourg.
Well, there are lots of these guys still around, a lot of them now working for the BBC on their local and their regional radio stations, or maybe Radio 2, as I am myself in certain places. And the reason is, I think, that the BBC are now allowing the personality to take over from the music because they can't compete with the music of the commercial radio stations.
Well, yes, that's very true. Not just the commercial radio stations, but TV has got a lot of music on. If you go into that area where you've got all those TV channels, I think a lot of kids are watching those because it gives an added dimension to the actual music track. You can see the artists, and they're making fabulous videos now. But, yeah, I think Radio 2 has always adhered to the policy of having a good, strong personality. You know, I mean, look at Terry Wogan, for example. Fantastic. And they just brought back Tony Blackburn, you know. I think this is great. It's the only hope for radio to have great, entertaining DJs.
Can we put a link on our website as well to DMC so people listening who'd like to see the series, maybe haven't seen it yet and see the series up to date, can do so?
Well, thank you, James, and I appreciate that. It's dmcworld.tv. And when they get in there, at the top there's a menu, and they can see History of DJ, and they can watch one of 6 episodes. I'm making them myself. I'm doing most of the editing, most of the blagging for films, and I'm narrating the whole thing. It's very budget content, but it's really entertaining. And I've done this so that DJs who are just new kids on the block and the new DJs of the future can see where it all came from and how they're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Well, I was inspired by the pirate stations. I didn't get on. I was too young to get onto the pirate radio stations. I then decided to try and become an actor. I then did some DJing, and I ended up with a Top Shop job, which was my idea, to have a radio station in the Top Shop in Oxford Circus.
I remember it. It was fantastic.
I thought I'd get discovered and put on Radio 1, but that never happened either.
Well, that's called good luck or bad luck. You know, the right person didn't walk into the shop, or the wrong person listened to your audition tape. You know, life is about good luck. I had a lot of luck. But I've got to tell you, James, just before I go, the biggest thing that happened to me in the last few years, I've got my first booking in Ibiza with the Emperor Roscoe. We're going to a club in Ibiza in 3 weeks' time, and we're having a big party there, and I'm really excited about that because all my mates, you know, the Paul Oakenfolds, the David Gletters, the Carl Coxes, they're all there every year and kicking it in for all those modern audiences. I don't know what kind of an audience we're going to get, but we're going to show them how we used to rock.
Well, do you know, I've thought for a long time that when I used to play records on the radio was back in the 80s and the 90s. Maybe some retro DJs as we used to be in the clubs and the discos, maybe we could bring it back.
Maybe we could. I mean, our fans of old would come, but I'm not too sure the modern kids would want to know. They've got their own music, they've got their own scene, and we've got to respect that. It would be very nice to see them respond to what we used to do. But that's back then, you know. I mean, we were very naive and very basic, and things have moved on enormously now. And I think the kids today are happy with what they've got, as we were happy with what we'd got. And we just made it better for ourselves by making sure that the national radio responded to our passion for pop music.
Well, you've got to go and play golf now, is that right?
I have terrible weather today, but I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to think as I'm going around what a great pleasure it was talking to the legendary James Whale. And I hope to see you soon, James.
Likewise, Royal Ruler. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
God bless everybody.
There we are. That's Tony Prince, the Royal Ruler. Did that bring back memories for you, Robbo?
Yeah, I was a big fan of Sunshine 101. Do you remember that?
No, I don't. Sunshine 101. That must have been in a part of the country I didn't get.
That's in the south of England.
Yeah? No, I don't remember that one. Caroline, London, and Luxembourg were my choices of radio listening in those days before I was on. But definitely his voice brings back all sorts of memories of your childhood. It's funny how voices do that, isn't it? Great. And don't forget, go to our website, jameswellradio.co.uk, and we will put a link so that you can go and look at the documentaries he's made about early radio if you're interested. And also up there, you can click on my 5 at 5, which are going out at the moment. I think about 3 or so far, aren't there?
Yeah, are these fruit?
5 at 5?
Yeah.
No, they're little TV shows which I've done the voiceover for about 5 things, like spooky things, like monsters, unusual stuff. Well, we're going to talk to this guy a little later called Eamonn Vann-Harris, who is an EVP expert, and he's on Most Haunted. Apparently, is he one of these people who talks to dead people?
That's a film, isn't it? I See Dead People.
Yeah, no, yes, but he does well. He'll explain, but he's on Most Haunted, and we talked to Yvette Fielding some time ago, who presents Most Haunting. So stand by for that. Also, remember, of course, you can go to our shop, jameswellradio.co.uk, the website there, and please go into the shop, enjoy maybe a T-shirt, a baseball cap, a mug. Maybe a copy of a fantastic book called Almost a Celebrity, A Lifetime of Nighttime, forward by Chris Moyles. It's yours for next to nothing. Treat yourself. Browse in the shop. I think that's a good idea, don't you?
Yeah, I think so.
Browse in the shop.
Yeah, browse in the shop, yeah.
And if you want to get in touch, jameswellradio@gmail.com is my email address. So if you want to have a mention, we give you a mention on the programme. Or if you want to buy advertising on the show, jameswellradio@gmail.com. Maybe you want to sponsor a feature. Now, the other thing, after the election last week, I was appalled. I don't know about you, Rob, but I was absolutely appalled at the rioting and the graffiti on the War Memorial in London. I mean, what is that got? Why, when you've had an election and people have had the chance to vote, why do you get a bunch of scruffs out there behaving appallingly? Can anybody answer this?
No, don't understand it.
I wonder how many of those people who were moaning, we don't want a Tory government, we don't want this, we don't want that. Flipping vote. Why don't you go and vote? And if you don't like the way life is, find somewhere you do like the way life is. I mean, honestly, I put that out on Facebook this week. Scott Williams says, disgraceful behaviour. I would agree with you, Scott. And Debbie Bay says, there is no democracy, says Debbie. Seats and votes don't equate. That's why we now have the Scottish having more say in Westminster than the third party with the most votes. As for the protesters, they are all worried about their free handouts getting slashed. Interesting, a lot of people feel that maybe we now need to change our voting system in this country, although we did have a referendum and nobody seemed to want it. Phil Richards said it was disgraceful behaviour, the rioting. They have no respect whatsoever. Bloody thugs. Daniel says, bad losers. I was expecting a Labour SNP coalition, which I would have hated. Thankfully, that wasn't the case, but these people and others should look at what they lost and not blame the Tories for winning. Interestingly enough, I think a lot of people probably did vote Tory because they were concerned about Labour doing a deal with the SNP. And it's interesting, Scotland now looks like a one-party state, doesn't it? I mean, the SNP, as far as Westminster is concerned, are the main party for Scotland. We'll have to see how that pans out. Daniel says, bad losers, yes. Dave O'Connor, the police are fighting to keep a force and their jobs, and the public are fighting the police. What chance have we got? And Lord James Mabbott, I like Lord James Mabbott. Graffiti on the War Memorial was stupid and extreme. However, in terms of protests, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. Large sections of the population feel unheard and unrepresented, only further fueling cynicism. It can't just be business as usual from the government. I think you might be right, James. I do. Ashley says rioting and graffiti aren't part of the democratic process. However, the majority of those involved seem to be involved in peaceful protests against this obscene government. And the peaceful protest has always been part of the democratic process. Yes, Ashley, what is why is this government obscene when they got voted democratically in? Presumably, if people thought they were obscene, Ashley, then more people should have gone and voted for the opposition. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on this. Maybe we can use them in next week's programme. Email jameswhaleradio@gmail.com. And Peter Y says, I've worked hard all my life, never took a sickie days off, brought up 2 children who also have good jobs, never claimed benefit, and always voted Tory. Hard work and a Conservative government never did me any harm. And I think, Peter, you've got to put in a bit of luck there as well, haven't you? I mean, don't we all need a bit of luck? I think perhaps we do. Right, shall we change tack and meet a gentleman who's now going to try and convince us that he has a machine that can contact beings from somewhere else. I'm not entirely sure where that may be. Eamonn Vann-Harris is an EVP specialist on the programme, and he joins me now. Eamonn, and thank you for joining us. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, Eamonn. Tell me what an EVP specialist is.
Okay, so an EVP specialist, EVP stands for Electronic Voice Phenomenon, and what that is the recording of something that we can't, like a disembodied voice or something which is above our human hearing range, or so I could go into a building, I could press record, and perhaps we can't hear a voice being said with our own ears, but we can capture it on certain bits of machinery.
Many years ago, I did some interviews on a radio program I was doing with a guy who was investigating what he called reverse speech. And this meant that if you took somebody who'd said something, and he took some famous speeches of well-known people, and he then played them backwards, and he reckoned that what you really meant when you were saying something, the real meaning could be heard if you played it all backwards. Is this something similar?
I guess it's not. I don't know if it is similar. I know that. I mean, there are crossovers with it. So, as an example, we've had a couple of recordings through in the past where, when you play it back, it sounds like somebody's talking backwards. So you reverse it, and then you've got a perfectly functioning forward speech. I think the study behind that was something to do with, is it to do with the left side and the right side of your brain? Like part of it actually takes in information backwards or something. I'm not entirely sure, but I know there is crossover with it. But it is a fascinating topic. It really is.
Let's look at what you do then. You go on Most Haunted. You go around into haunted buildings to see whether you can hear anything untowards there. Now, does this mean, Eamonn, that you are a medium of some kind or in touch with the spirit world?
I wouldn't say a medium. I'd say what I am is a facilitator. So I don't necessarily, I don't pick up anything specifically, no more than the rest of the team do. But it's more that I just analyse what comes through on the machines that myself and some of my colleagues help me build. So it's I'd say more of an operator. I think it's the best way to describe it.
Did you find that you had a gift for this? How did you get into this in the first place?
I grew up in an engineering family, family of engineers. My dad was an electronic engineer, and as a child, whereas most people would play with toys, I was obsessed with pulling circuits apart, like, little stereos and things like that, and rebuilding them. And I was always fascinated with the way things work, the way things are put together. And the slightly geeky side of me would really love radio waves and audio waves and trying to understand how frequencies work. And this was as a child. So I always kind of had that in me. And I remember it was about 2009, and I started to... I'd been reading about EVP previously, and funnily enough, it was after watching Most Haunted, I decided to do a bit of research. So after I watched the first series of Most Haunted, I thought, well, I'll see what kind of phenomena exists within the paranormal world. And EVP was the one thing that stuck with me, because there were so many researchers who'd spoke about it and apparently had some good evidence. So, it goes as far back as Tesla and Edison were apparently trying to make some form of machine which could do this. I think Tesla said that he had some recordings through. I think he got them confused and thought they were from Mars. But they were more likely to be EVP recordings which he received. So I was reading about all these researchers, and then 2009, by chance, I went for a walk with my girlfriend, and we were recording this stream, this little stream nearby, and on playing it back, I noticed there was these strange sort of whispers on there, but there was only me and her there, so I sent it to an audio specialist in Canada. He amplified it, had a look into it, and my name was said several times, and I started to get more and more EVPs coming through on my phone, and I didn't tell anybody for ages. It's only about 2 or 3 people that knew about it, and in fact, before I came onto Most Haunted, I kept this quiet for about 4.5 years, so I didn't really tell anybody, because I wanted to be 100% sure that it is what it is.
Are you 100% sure now that you're in contact with the spirits of dead people?
I'm 100% sure that we're getting voices from people who claim to be those who've passed on. But yeah, I can't really find any other explanation. We've had so many experts on the project now. We've done so many tests, and we've had so much confirmed. We've got an archive of, it's a couple of thousand hours of recordings now. It's the biggest EVP archive in the world, and we're going to be releasing it soon. And we're going to be doing tours in the UK, just, showing these machines live for people to come and see them. So it's, it did take me some coming around to it, because, as you can imagine, before this I was a little bit sceptical. I always have that skeptic side of me. And then when it happens to you, it kind of changes how you feel about something. And I needed to be 100% sure, obviously, before taking it out there.
Let's play an example now. Let's just pick one at random and play it now, and then explain to me what this is. Here we go.
Lena.
Now, Eamonn, that sounded a bit muffled to me, but explain exactly what that was.
So, Lena is, what she is sort of like a contact that comes forward, who actually appeared in another researcher's work back in the 60s called Friedrich Jürgensen. And she was quite popular around that time because people were catching her on EVP recordings. And she describes herself as some form of operator that makes this, that facilitates this contact. So we've got a lot of recordings where I'll ask Lena if she can hear me, or we'll do certain tests to make sure the machine's tuned in correctly. And we just get, voices saying, yep, I can hear you, or that's clear, we can hear you now. And with that particular voice, it was, I asked if she could hear me, and she said, I can hear you.
So, all right, well, you've got this Lena saying, I can hear you, but what about the rest of do you not have a conversation, ask her where she is to explain what she's doing and what it's like where she is?
Yeah, she describes it as not too dissimilar to here, really. I think the only difference is that they don't pay any tax, so I think that's, they live in, she describes it as being quite similar to Earth, like it actually backs up the multiverse theory, really, because it's almost like a mirror of this world. And she describes that, because it can be hard to hear all of the conversations that take place, but, from what we've got so far, it seems that, she's in something similar to what we're in. And they're working on this project to make it happen and communicate with us here. So
why when they presumably, if you believe that these are the spirits of people who died, or do you believe these are beings from another dimension? Whereabouts are you on this?
I don't know about beings from another dimension. I mean, I try to stay quite grounded when it comes to things like that. I mean, I'm actually open to debate on it, if I'm completely honest. As it stands, we sort of treat them like subjects. So, the way we look at it, everything's subjective. The machine is getting through voices. The voices that come through are those who claim that they're operators, who live in something that's mirrored to us. So, for instance, Lena, I can't say if she's, I don't know, I doubt she's another being. I would assume she's human. But
well, she can't be human, can she? If she's, if she's dead, she's not human, is she?
I don't know. Do you stop being human if you're dead? That's open to debate.
I don't know.
Really.
I don't know. I want to know, where do you think these people go when they die?
Well, I mean, by all accounts and from the recordings we've got, it does seem to continue life seems to continue in some other way, which is a higher frequency, which is one we can't actually see. But they have new physical laws. So where we have this physical law, which our body and so on sort of, is part of, she's, to say Lena, as an example, she's part of a new physical law. So her world is as physical to her. So although we could say she's a ghost, her world actually feels completely solid to her by all accounts. And, they have machinery, they have communication to contact us, but they just it seems to be a nicer place, it seems to be a happier place. And it's funny, actually, because it's just coming into the start of this project is around the same time that science is now saying that, it's actually extremely likely that mirrored worlds do exist.
So if you believe that this is the soul or an extension, if you like, of somebody whose physical being has ceased, they must know that they've moved on from where we are. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, they seem to have complete memory of life here. They sort of refer to being when they're in this body here, and then they move on. But, yeah, they seem to be absolutely aware, and there seems to be a new understanding of why they were here once they move on. Almost like an epiphany once they move on, that they feel that there's almost like a sense of freedom. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if it's because they just don't abide by the same kind of lifestyles anymore, where they follow sets of rules, or they're stuck into like a 9-to-5 working job or something. It seems to just be a much freer place. After doing this research for 4.5 years, it really has opened my mind as well, and I'm asking questions too. I think the great thing is that we've gone past the theory stage, though, and we've moved to something where we've got solid proof, and it's just trying to understand exactly what we're dealing with now.
When you go more public with this, as you say you are, you're going to go on a tour and you're going to release some of this stuff on your own website, Eamonn.
Yeah.
People are going to hit you with the questions, can you prove this? You say you've got proof. How do we know you're not conning us just to make a few bob out of this? And you're going to have to respond to those. How will you do that?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the thing is, with what I actually own is a foundation called New World Science, and it's purely research. And the fact is that
you see, that sounds very grand, Eamonn. It sounds a very grand title that you've given this product, and that sometimes worries people. They're going to think there might be something a little more dubious behind this. Are you prepared to be scrutinized?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Because at the end of the day, it does what it says on the tin. I mean, it's called New World Science, but all it is it actually says it's just a foundation for research on electronic voice phenomena. So, it's just a little name that we picked because we thought, well, we're coming into a world of new discoveries, and this in itself, there's not too much in science that's related to this world, to this work. So we just kind of came up with the name New World Science. And when it comes to money, I mean, the fact is, right now, the research it's cost me tens of thousands. I've not made a penny out of it, and to be fair, I'm not actually planning to make any, and I'm not planning to sell anything either. So for me, it's a passion. you know, and it's a passion that I know my girlfriend's not too pleased about because it costs so much money to run. You know, it's not got a business model. It is purely research. So I think the dream and the plan is to really, really take it into science, to really move it forward. I mean, we've got scientists in Germany now that are starting to really help us and give us advice. And the thing is, as you were saying before about actually proving it, I mean, even the devices themselves can be, you know, I'm happy for them to be looked at. I mean, we've got the principal designs of exactly how it works. The science behind it, it uses scalar energy. We actually receive scalar energy transmissions, and that was something.
Hang on a moment. Don't blind me with science here, Eamonn. What is scalar energy?
Well, basically, scalar was an energy that was discovered by, I think it was mainly Tesla who discovered it. But it was discarded, really, because where you've got... So I'll give you an example. With radio waves, with hertz that we're using right now, if you were to broadcast something from A to B using hertz, you can actually track that radio wave from A to B. But with scalar waves, if you were to send something from A to B, it will go from A. It seems to leave our atmosphere completely, and then it seems to just reappear at its own will, but it will always turn up at B. And scalar is quite a unique energy that can actually penetrate the Earth's core as well. So there's nothing that can actually stop scalar. So you could put this machine, you could put an EVP, like a setup into a Faraday cage, which blocks out all radio transmissions, all signals, but scalar waves will still they'll still get through there. So that's the sort of the explanation we've arrived at now, and that's how we've developed this machine.
How are you... let me press you a bit more on funding. You say you're not going to make any money out of this, Eamonn, and it's costing you a fortune to do it. How do you manage that?
Well, I run my own business, so a lot of expenses come from my own business. I have a business in the games industry, and so I recruit people. I put teams of games developers together and stuff. So that's kind of where a lot of the money's come from.
How could I get one of these machines then?
I'm not going to be having them at the high street, if that's what you mean. I've not got any plans to build them, but I've certainly got plans to sort of... I was thinking of actually building some and pass them on to certain organisations, maybe even universities, to research and sort of have a play around with and try to advance them themselves and try to understand them. So that's where I want to take it, really. Being on Most Haunted is great because it gives us the chance to show what these machines can actually do.
And supposing somebody comes back and says, hang on, you're just picking up a lot of static, some of which sounds like somebody's speaking.
Well, again, it's open to debate, isn't it? But I think with some of the recordings you'll hear yourself, it's very hard to say that it's just static speaking when you're asking a question. So I'll ask, I'll say, well, can you hear me? And somebody says, yeah, I can hear you clearly. And it's not a static sound, it's an actual vocal with a female tone or a male tone. And I think the thing is that I can't force people to believe in something. I wouldn't want to do that. I think it's an exciting topic. I think it really opens us up into something different. And I think it needs to be scrutinised as well because, you can't have everybody just believe everything that's said. There has to be a balance in the world. There has to be skeptics. There has to be people sat on the fence, and there has to be believers.
Trouble is, Eamonn, the problem that a lot of people have with this whole topic is that you appeal to some very vulnerable people who will do almost anything to believe that there is life after this one, and that's the trouble. You'll get people who are so vulnerable who are prepared to give you almost anything if you can find some kind of contact with a dead loved one. Yeah,
and I think, and that's all. It's a shame, really, because I assume, I guess that will happen, but we're not in it for that. That's what people have mediums and psychics for. I mean, I'm not a big follower of a lot of mediums, really, because I think it's so easy to fake a lot of it. Whereas I have met some talented mediums, though, as well. I think with the machines, I don't have to be around them.
Well, that's an interesting point. Hang on, Eamonn. How do you know? And I've met and interviewed people from the legendary Doris Stokes up to the present day. But how do you know? I've never been able to tell. How do you know whether somebody is a talented medium? Because it means that they could just be a really, really good entertainer. How do we actually know that they're talking to people who died? I can't get any proof of that.
I know, this is the problem, isn't it? Because, I mean, I could give you a really good general reading now. You know, I could be telling you that you're going to win the lottery, or I could tell you that, you know, you've had a hard time, and, you know...
And I'd be telling you you're talking shit, so we won't do that.
Yeah, so it really is a difficult one. I mean, I've met a couple of people who aren't actually in the limelight, who don't go out there and make money from it, that can tell me something about me that nobody would know, you know, from a childhood or something. And you kind of think, well, if it is a guess, it's a bloody good guess, you know. But then there's some, I mean, I've been for a couple of readings before, and they've been so general, and it's just the way that money's been exchanged and stuff, it just didn't feel comfortable. But I know, you know, going back to what you were saying earlier about it is open to the vulnerable, but it's also open to those who actually want to advance it in a scientific way. That's where it's aimed at. Now, obviously, you can't control. I'm trying to control who are going to get their hands on the machines, because I want it to be done in a responsible way. You know, because at the end of the day, it's a research. You know, if you want to try and contact dead loved ones at home, there's things like the spirit box. I'm not entirely sure how they work, but there's all kinds of gadgets on the market and stuff, and this isn't that. You know, this is something that we keep in-house. This is something we love to investigate. We love to research. This is something that actually has taken a lot of our time up, and there's been some great people who've put in so much time and effort into this, and it might benefit people in the future.
Let's listen to another example as well, Eamonn. Let's have another example.
Hello? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
So what exactly was that all about then, Eamonn?
That was an experimenter. His wife passed away, and that was the first contact we'd had from her. And it was a funny one, really, because it was just completely out of nowhere. We were actually packing up the equipment. We were getting prepared for a conference, and we were just testing the machines. And it was a little bit quiet all night. And then this recording came across. And I think what's key with this one is that you've got the experimenter's name, and then there's the hello. It's very direct, and the voices in between that you can hear in the background, they seem to be voices that are kind of checking on the status of this person who wants to who wants to come and talk. So it's, it's, you know, I think it's quite an exciting recording, and it kind of shows where we're trying to go with it.
It's not very easy to understand, it has to be said. And also, the conversation doesn't seem to go anywhere. Is that the whole extent of the conversation? Or did this chap actually get to speak to his deceased wife?
Well, we haven't really achieved HD just yet on the project. We're still in the early phases of building. I think it's all about potential, but you can... it was just a case of, it was just pleasantry exchanges at that point. The problem is that it drops off after a couple of sentences, it drops off, and that's something we're still trying to research and find out why.
Eamonn, thank you very much indeed for explaining some of this. We're going to put them up on our website so that people can go and have another listen to them. And perhaps you could give us your website address as well. And if people would like to go and have a little listen there and find out more about this, they can.
Yeah, sure. It's if you look for it's newworldscience.org, so it's all one word. And what we're going to be doing is putting up a load of new recordings. And also actually about how it works, pictures of the machine, and just basically how it's all put together and the kind of principles behind it. So yeah, it's I'd love people to come and see it.
That wasn't a ghost in the background there, was it, Eamonn?
I don't know what that was actually. I don't know. It could have been the letterbox.
Eamonn, great. People can see you, of course, on the new edition of Most Haunted as well.
Yeah, that's right, from the 4th of June on Really TV.
Thanks, Eamonn.
Cheers, bye.
Bye, bye. Thank you to Eamonn Vann-Harris. I'd like to know your thoughts on that. And also, if anybody knows, I can't remember the guy, the reverse speech chap. If anybody knows a contact number for him, I used to have him on a program a long time ago, and it used to be fascinating. If we can find his contact number, I'd like to get him back on this program. So drop me a line, jameswellradio@gmail.com. Shall we do the questions?
Well, let's do them then. Fraser Ramsey, what was the last film you saw in the cinema?
Oh, my golly gosh. I can't remember. I can't remember since the event of bigger TVs and DVDs or Blu-ray. I can't remember. What was the last movie I went to? I remember thinking, my God, this is loud. And I also remember thinking that the music between the dialogue and the incidental music was quite different. I can't remember. I really, that's the first question that stumped me. What was the last movie that I went to see? Oh, yes, I think it was Taken.
Taken 3.
No, the first one.
No, it can't be the first one. You've seen the Pyramid Text since then.
Oh, that was the last one I went to. You're right. Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, I did. Yes, I went to see that. Yes. Has Taken 3 come out?
Yes.
I think I've seen Taken 1 and 2.
You haven't seen 3?
I don't think so. When did it come out?
Oh, last year.
Oh, I'll be able to get it on DVD.
Yes, it's available for DVD now.
Right, next question.
Okay, due to Robbo's popularity, all this sounds good already, will you start selling Robbo merchandise in the James Whale shop?
Let me put it this way. If anybody asks for a Robbo T-shirt, I will consider it. If anybody wants a Robbo face mask or to be a member of the Robbo fan club, yeah, we'll start doing it.
John Jones, Charlotte Church versus Katie Hopkins boxing match, and the winner is...
Well, it has to be Charlotte Church. She's from Wales. She's a very feisty young lady, and I think she'd have Katie, whatever her name is, on the ground in no time flat.
Okay, Matt West. What is a fleckoid?
It's a freckle that's gone nuclear and exploded all over your face.
Right, Tony Ingram. Could Nigel Farage promote UKIP using a giant blimp? He could call it a Farage balloon.
He could, or he could also use maybe a chocolate sweet and call it Faraggio Rocher.
Gary Fitches. I'm going with
You can never read, can you? What is wrong with you? Do you need new glasses?
I've got my glasses on.
Oh, okay.
Your thoughts on Wimbledon tennis, the prize money, and its toffee-nosed spectators?
I think it's great, and why on earth you should be worried about what they're doing in Wimbledon? Listen, if you people who feel like you really get up my nose. I mean, if you're so concerned about it, learn to play tennis. If you're any good at it, you can make the money yourself, can't you? And I've never been to Wimbledon. I'm not interested in tennis, but I don't have a downer on those people who wish to do it. Why do you? It doesn't affect you in any way, does it? What a miserable individual you are. You, what was their name again?
You're making me say the name again deliberately on it. Gary Fitches.
Hang on. Let me look in the script here. Have we got his name here somewhere?
Front page, first page.
First page of the... Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Right, well, I tell you, Gary, whatever your stupid name is, you're banned from listening to this programme in future.
Oh, dear.
Right? I don't want to hear or see anything from Gary Fitchbotch again.
Crikey.
What?
That's okay.
Well, it's just, nasty. I hate these people who are so bitter and twisted. Wimbledon tennis, the prize money, and its toffee-nosed spectators. What do you do that's so good, Gary Fitzchick, eh? No, I didn't think you had an answer. Anyway, that's it. I've got to go.
Okay.
I'm out of here, as they say. My thanks to Eamonn Vann-Harris, and of course the legend, that was Tony Prince. We will be back here again, same time, same channel, in a week or so. And in the meantime, there's over 80 hours to listen to. And if you've got any questions, jameswellradio@gmail.com. Rob will get in touch. Because that's what Rob does.
Can I ask you a question before we go?
Oh, go on then, what?
You know it's okay to say balls on the radio if it's a name.
Yeah.
What about Harry Balls?
What about Harry Balls?
What if you had a bit of an accent?
Yeah? What sort of accent?
I don't know, try a London one.
Harry Balls.
Yep, that's what I thought would happen.
You're listening to the James Well Radio Show. For more information, visit www.jameswellradio.co.uk. Why not check us out on Facebook.com/James Well Radio Show, or follow James on Twitter @the James Whale. James Whale, the voice of reason.